Good afternoon, friends. So, all of a sudden, when you're supposed to moderate, it becomes very difficult. But I'll manage because I've been given two questions and I'm supposed to ask that only because हमारे जो panel पे है वो भी वही रट के आए हैं. I can't ask anything more than that. The, the only thing different is, fortunately, each one of them is from a different segment. And in the next few minutes, we'll get a very good balance of the entire industry, be it from our airlines to airports to what we think, what is the travel industry. Kapil, welcome. And today we have no protocol, we have only Kapil call. So, friends, let's begin. We have seen lots and lots of ups and downs, but we are holding on. Just before this, we had a session on inbound tour operators. In the morning, there were many hoteliers, and they really feel that this segment does not exist for the next year as well. And the only thing which came out from that was, by and large, everybody feels that coming this October, airlines will open and tourist visa will be available. That is what our feeling is from all the news that we are reading. So starting today, let us find out from different segments, starting with Jyoti Mayal for the travel industry. What do you see the demand and supply of your particular segment?
Thank you, Homa. I was expecting very difficult questions from you. So good you're going as per protocol. Thanks, Naveen, for sharing those questions, actually. I think the travel industry as such is going through a huge change. That's the first thing that's come out of COVID. And it's not news. It's for everyone knows that. It's nothing that I'm saying that's new to anyone's ears. But right now, I think the buzzword is domestic. And it's here to stay. In some ways, I think crisis does bring opportunities because I think India should be in cashing on that. That's for sure. Because I think that's going to be here for quite some time. Saying that, I'm also going to say that it's not easy. It's very easily said, move from outbound to inbound, move from inbound to domestic. But I think it's very, very challenging. And it's very challenging for my membership. It's very challenging for me also because I'm not into domestic tourism as such. We could be doing tourism, but our strength is still outbound. And that is the most challenging point. How do we convert ourselves? How do we change the way we do our businesses? And yes, we are not still sure, Homa, when it's going to open up because every 15 days we hear a new date. We started with saying February, then we said March, then we said April, and now we are hearing October. It depends on countries. So outbound is not going to be so easy to be opening up. It's going to be absolutely as per protocols from different countries. So we anyway have to take the opportunity by the horns, the bull's horns, and see that, how we could do domestic tourism a lot. And that's what we are doing as encouraging our members as TIE. And we are actually trying that they should be developing that sector more. Domestic tourism does have a lot of opportunities because we are a country which is full of, it's got a plethora of everything. From the beaches to the mountains to the adventure to the wellness. And there's nothing that we are lacking globally where all these things are concerned. But how to sell is very important. So the government, the Ministry of Tourism has been doing Dekho Apna Desh a lot. And we as TIE have already proposed Sikho Apna Desh. So it's easy to see than to sell. So how do we sell that is what we have to tell our members, and that's how we need to go forward. I don't know how long do I have to swear, so you can continue.
Demand and supply on the corporate ticketing side.
Yeah, so on the corporate side, the business is not going to come in so quickly because work from home is here to stay for some time. And the corporate is not going to move so quickly to start going out, and the business is not going to revive very soon. It's going to take some time. Leisure may, but the corporate business is not going to revive so soon because that's what the future looks like till the time we all don't get vaccinated, till the time the boundaries don't open, till the time we don't really need to go out. So I think that's going to take some time to, really move forward with.
Thanks. So Kapil, before I get into the in other industries, you are the one who has the vision to see what is going to happen in the future. Because, that's what you all study and that's what all your reports say. So how do you see the overall demand and supply among all the segments for India of tourism?
Good evening, friends. I must clarify one thing which you and Amit had this discussion in the morning, and I said I will tell you on the stage.
Correct.
We are having a big challenge these days whenever we are asked to present. And if it's a fact-based, data-based, research-based insights, the reaction is that you are promoting gloom and doom.
Correct.
So the Homa I knew was a fact-driven person. I think COVID has changed that as well. You are more data-driven, fact-driven, rather than wanting to only hear upside. So I wanted to clarify
not upsides. I mean, it's been a year. We know what figures are there, but we are in a hurry to start.
Yes.
So bhuka kya
No,
nahi karta?
that's the point I wanted to start before I react.
Yeah, but the facts are facts, and that is what we want to
Yes,
listen from you.
yes. And so the point I was trying to make is that industry is normally built for making business cases for an upside. Whilst that's good, but COVID needs to bring a little bit of realism in terms of how you plan for your future. You are in a hurry to get traffic back or into business back. That's what our wish is. But that's not going to happen in reality. It's going to be a long and painful kind of recovery. So I had to clarify that because you told him that last few slides are gloom and doom. So I said to you whilst we are having coffee that I will, on the stage, clarify this. But to your question on the demand side, where we are and where we are looking at domestic demand, possibly first quarter of 23, becoming pre-COVID. It doesn't factor in if there are any supply side risks. And the supply side risks are very severe because the industry has lost will lose this fiscal $4.5 billion. I'm talking about the airlines only. So if there are no supply side risk and the recapitalization happens to the level that's required, you're looking at first quarter of FY23 as getting back to pre-COVID numbers, which were 140 million prior to COVID. We will close this year at about 50 million or 53, 54 in the domestic. And you will possibly hit back to pre-COVID numbers by quarter one FY23. International, where most of your interest is. The international is, I think, if I'm mistaken, it's under 10 million this fiscal from a pre-COVID number of 70. So it's about 85% down. Earliest you could look at a revival of international is FY24. And I'm not talking about inbound, I'm talking about outbound, I'm talking about inbound, I'm talking business travel. The only buoyant segment that seems to be carrying the day is the VFR segment. But broadly, for international to get back to pre-COVID, inbound has to get back to pre-COVID, outbound has to get back to pre-COVID, business travel has to get back to pre-COVID. And there are structural issues in each of these segments. And it could vary from segment to segment. So overall, I think the industry needs to be prepared for a long haul, a painful next 2-3 years. And as I said, I was discussing with you during the coffee break or a lunch break, that status quo kind of an approach, status quo kind of leadership, status quo kind of marketing is not something that will bring quicker relief for you. So it's going to be a long haul. We should be prepared for that long haul and capitalize for that long haul or recapitalize for that long haul. Now, when you're talking about an airline, the recapitalization could be 3-4 billion. For a travel agent, it could be lesser. But you have to recapitalize to bring growth back. If you don't recapitalize, you're not going to bring growth back. Thank you.
Seema, your thoughts as far as outbound is concerned, because US is giving visa. Maybe India is not giving, but US is. So.
Well, and Kapil, I love your numbers, and I'm so happy that I'm coming after him, because I'm not going to talk numbers. First and foremost, it's all about Corona Pranam. So that's the new way of saying hello. So that's what I have done during this time of Corona, I think. Coming down, Homa, to what the demand is, what we're really seeing from an outbound perspective is, and I'm talking more from an industry, is that there is a lot of pent-up demand. People are tired. They've zoomed out. This whole fatigue of lockdown has set in. They want to travel. They really do want to travel. I think every day one is getting a huge number of queries. Now, how many of them convert, we don't know, but we are getting queries. We've seen that every time any country or any destination that opens up, the Indians flock there. You know, we saw with whether that was Maldives, whether that was Dubai, and now, you know, with our bubble flights to the United States, like Kapil said, we have a very big advantage with VFR. But is the VFR just doing VFR? No. They're going around. So as far as we are concerned, there is some kind of travel happening there within the protocols of what's allowed in every place. So we've seen a few very interesting trends happening. One, we've seen this whole extension of leisure, where people are using this opportunity to say, hey, since I can work from anywhere, why don't I go to another new destination, explore, and kind of work from there? We've started to also see the bubble travel come up. So, you know, people are finding their own ways to go and travel together. And that's also happening internationally, wherever they can. We've noticed that, obviously, it's a given that health factors, hygiene, cleanliness, they are going to hold a very high priority. What we've also seen is that besides the outdoor, which everyone's talking about, outdoor is very important, open spaces, you know, the Indians are also looking now also for urban experiences. Let's not forget, we like our urban areas, so that's also happening from an outbound perspective. What we're noticing in the luxury segment is very interesting. It's about more bespoke. Coming down to the supply, now whichever country opens up, they all have supply. Because as Jyoti said here, the business travel isn't opening up in a hurry. So I really think the moment the borders open, and of course, unless the airlines can offer lift, you know, the moment they do that, I think that, you know, people are very willing to travel.
Thanks. With that positive note, let us get a regional view. What do you think? How is the regional demand and supply going to work?
I think usually we have seen demands creating supply, but this time I believe the preparedness, assurance of preparedness from supply side is going to create demand. For example, this event itself is creating a kind of assurance for supply side. So my observation is, in our region, obviously the demand is there. I mean, the willingness among potential travelers is very, very strong. But what it is limiting the travel pattern is the travel hassle, travel restrictions. That is limiting the travel practices. So just let me give some example. Like day before yesterday, I was, a few days ago, a week ago, I was planning to come to Delhi. And it was very, very difficult to find a ticket. There are 2 flights between Kathmandu to Delhi. And then the price is like anything, 30,000 plus for 1 hour flight. So that kind of things are limiting the travel willingness. In another side, I think there is more demand on passion-driven travel rather than pleasure-driven travel. That is going to lead at least for coming years, I think by 2022. So that kind of things are there. The more we focus ourselves in destination preparedness, assuring travelers that yes, there is less hassle, there is safer environment, definitely demand is there.
Thank you. Thank you. Ajib, on the South India side, you are representing South just now. There's a huge demand of medical tourism also. That segment, as well as how is the demand and supply looking in South India? Overall in all segments.
Thank you, Homa. Actually, as far as South India is concerned, South India has been going good, especially after we have opened up the tourism, the domestic tourism. 60-70% occupancy in most of the southern India states in the domestic sector, out of which probably about 40 to 50% within the states, and 20 to 30%, from the outside the states. That has been going on till last month. But now, almost about 9, yesterday I was told that 10 states have put restrictions on, probably between Kerala and Tamil Nadu, or Tamil Nadu and Karnataka and Kerala and Maharashtra and Delhi, these kind of restrictions. So that has brought down 30% less now. Even if you come to Kerala for a day, when you go back, you need RT-PCR negative test. So that is blocking, not for coming. Coming for 7 days, there is no restriction in Kerala. Only after 7 days, if you are going further, then you need a RT-PCR test. Probably that will, for short-term holiday makers, there's no issue. But when you go for a wellness tourism for 14 days or 21 days, then you need a test again. Otherwise, it was going on smoothly. But now it's affecting badly. But otherwise, 60 to 70% occupancy, doing very well. People have opened up with 50% or 40% rooms, then subsequently 60%, 70%. It has been going on very well. That was the situation. But if you look at two aspects, one is whether the entire tourism industry has been beneficial to that. Probably tour operators may not have that much of business from this domestic business. Except people have been doing in the tourism, in the domestic business for quite some time. They have been getting it, but with the low margins. The hotels also, the rates have been, the ARR or ATR all has been slashed very badly. But it's a survival kit and a starting point for the revival. Medical value travel, 150 hospitals are in southern India, recognized, NABH approved, as well as some of them are internationally approved. Medical sector has also been affected because people have been very reluctant to go to the hospitals to start with, and subsequently it has come up to 50%. Now almost about 70 to 80% fine. And medical value travel, now visa, there is no restriction. For medical value travel, they give the visa. So for business travel, medical value travel, but definitely not for tourism purpose. That is what is happening. It's a great opportunity. We have just commissioned, because I am also represent the health sector, because we have a hospital of 900 beds in Trivandrum. We have just commissioned, 5 lakh square feet and opened up just 3 weeks back with 300 beds more. And looking for international patients to come in with most modern facilities, including transplants and things like that. So there is a good opportunity for even tour operators who are sitting there to divert their segment into that level, so that, probably you will get about, a reasonably good business from the West African countries as well as, neighboring countries. Medical value travel is a good segment for India because today everything is going to Singapore and Thailand. India is actually can be a very good, destination for medical value travel. Our facilities and our medical professionals are outstanding. And, we have a lot of insurance facilities also recognized in India. Look at that opportunity also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Finally, Ajit, with all this closing opening on the adventure side, what is the demand and supply looking at?
Thanks, Homa. People, I think, thanks to the pandemic, have been suffering from cabin fever and wanting to get out. So I think adventure travel has been doing reasonably well. There are 3 segments of adventure travel. So I would say the camping business of adventure travel, the adventure activities business, activities like bungee jumping, ballooning, river rafting, and so on. Both these segments are at about 60 to 70% of the pre-pandemic levels. But as far as the adventure trips segment is concerned, which is the longer multi-day treks and motorcycling expeditions and mountain biking trips, river rafting expeditions, that business is down to about 30 to 35% of the pre-pandemic levels. And I'm talking domestic adventure travel. But there is one other point I would like to flag, with your permission, Homa.
Sure.
As a country, pre-pandemic, we had a big, hairy, audacious dream, which was to be a $5 trillion economy by 2024. Of course, there's a setback as far as the timelines are concerned. But the only way we can get there is if we leverage our service sector. We did leverage Make in India, and specifically the travel and tourism sector, which, as we all know, contributes 9.3% to our GDP. Thanks.
Sorry, you had another point to make.
I think humans by nature itself, they are social creatures and nomadic nature. So they will definitely travel. So while talking about the segment-wise, we believe that first will be the domestic segment, which is already on the ride and on the rise. In Nepal also, in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, in India, in all these countries in South Asia. And second is niche segment, in which we are very, very strong, but in that segment, we need to unleash our potential. We are so rich in this segment, but which is not unleashed so far, and this is probably the best time to highlight these segments. And third is business segment, which is also one of the very important segment. And fourth is spiritual segment. I believe leisure segment will be the last segment to revive, maybe by 2022 or 2030. Thank you.
Thanks. So overall, we've got a good idea of the demand and supply in various segments. Now, the next question is, do we have a roadmap? You know, as the head of an association, is there a roadmap that you can get people, or you can tell them how to go forward? You know, so that point.
Yeah, Uma, thank you. Yes, there is a roadmap, and we are saying it loud and very clear that, like I started with, that domestic tourism is something which we'll all need to focus on more. It's not that outbound is not going to happen, like all the panelists on the dais said, that people are frustrated, they need to get out, they need to explore, because I think travel and tourism is all about experiences. And you can only get those experiences not sitting at home, but when you are out of your home and your offices and explore more places. So, but yes, we are a resilient industry. We need to see how more strength we can accumulate to actually move forward. And saying that we need to look for new opportunities, new ways of doing businesses, because the demographic of a traveler and a destination has truly changed. The lookout, the SOPs in place, you know, that's also changed. So we've already talking to our members, and we are hand-holding them to say how we can move forward with the correct procedures in place. We are talking with the government to say what new policies should be coming in. We have been in discussions with to see how some special tourism zones should be coming into India, how the MDAs need to be adopted, how all the agents should be recognized by the government. When the inbound starts, it should be, the agents should be all recognized by the Ministry of Tourism is a very big thing which needs to come into place. And the most important thing is what we've seen in COVID time is finances being stuck with the airlines, our refunds not happening, our insurances need to be in place. How we create funds for our members is something we are looking at. Ease of business is another platform which we are looking for. So if I start speaking about everything, it's going to take me a full day. But all those things we are working on, because, you know, the challenges are so huge that it's a huge, we've got a lot of huge tasks to do and see how we can protect our members for everything. But we need to certainly, there are three things which really come into focus is that we need to reinvent ourselves. We need to reboot ourselves. We need to restructure ourselves. We need to get into more collaborations and cooperations. So I think all this collectively is only what is going to drive us to do better business. And we should be learning from our mistakes, which we don't. I heard your session in the last session where you were moderating that people are working on 1 rupee, and I heard our dear friend sitting here, Rajiv, talking about 1 rupee and 100 rupees and 1,000 rupees. I think that's very important. Why we as members and why we as agents don't learn from our mistakes is something which I still don't understand. I'm exasperated at times, actually. You know, that we are starting from ground zero. Let us build up into a better industry for tomorrow, a legacy to leave behind for our young ones to come. Let's work towards that. And I think that is something which needs to be looked into and not be in competition with each other, but be a competitive world to be playing good, fair business in.
Kapil, you know, demand supply changes, roadmap, as everybody is saying. From your side, you know, you've seen all the segments. If you were the Secretary Tourism, what kind of a roadmap would you give to the tourism industry? Supposing you are the Secretary Tourism, Tourism Secretary, because he is the one who actually ministers don't know about it. So, Secretary, what kind of a roadmap would you lay out for the tourism industry from your side? Because you keep thinking, you keep reading, and you feel that we keep hitting our heads. Just now, Ajit spoke 9% of GDP. We all talk about that. We go to the government, but I don't know who's listening. If you were the secretary, you know, because if we have to do it on our own, what kind of a roadmap would you give the industry?
I must confess it's a very tricky question, but nevertheless,
A little louder.
I'll answer with all the integrity I have. If I was the tourism secretary, I'll first stop thinking the tourism is just marketing, is road shows, is events. Tourism is a consumer business. So till we don't understand the markets, we don't understand the consumers, there can't be any roadmap. And fundamental to the revival is to understand the consumers, because it's given that the demographic and psychographic segmentation changes are very, very deep and structured. What I have seen of the tourism ministry so far, and I hope that changes, is that it's about participating in events, doing some campaigns, maybe some PR activity, little ad hoc, unstructured. But post-COVID, will that approach can continue? Is my assessment not the right way forward? I would think that there must be a resetting of the role of the tourism ministry here. What's their job? Marketing is to be outsourced to a specialist. PR is to be outsourced to a specialist. I must create a policy and a regulatory redesign which will allow a new system to emerge. So if I was the secretary, I would possibly say that I need to create a 5, 7 or 10-year roadmap. It must be based on fundamentals. It must be based on the markets we serve. It must be based on segments we serve. It must be based on the consumer, what you call, let's say, consumer intent with respect to a destination like India. And with that, you create the ecosystem around it to make it work. But so far, I have seen probably, as I said to you, I've seen marketing, I've seen events. I've seen a lot of ad hocism, frankly. And I said this at the tourism conference last year. We are not basically set up to be a high-generating tourism economy, because our goals and priorities are extremely lopsided. So the roadmap must begin with the consumer, must begin with the markets, must begin with the policy and regulatory redesign, must look at the ease of doing business, which you see the hoteliers talking, tour operators talking. How do we dismantle that structure? How do we create a financial ecosystem, cost ecosystem, which is better? And then how do we professionalize the sector for execution? So I think it has to go back to the basics, frankly. So it's a very difficult task.
Very, very sad situation, you know. But we are in it today. What should happen is not happening. That's what we are all talking about. And again, we are left to ourselves to do what we can best. So in such a scenario, Shima, what do you think is the roadmap for the outbound? The way it is happening, is it a good structured way of doing business, or there is a far better way of looking at outbound also? There's more potential in it. Also, we as inbound tour operators have not shifted. We've tried, we did not become domestic tour operators. Do you see that? Because they're very intelligent. We've traveled the world, we know everything, but somehow we consistently do not want to change. But do you think there is a good opportunity for inbound tour operators to look at outbound as a business and get into it, and there is some success in that? Or, I mean, how do we go about it? How do you see outbound?
Lots of questions. And Kapil, that was fantastic. I really think I wish the ministry is hearing that. But you know, coming to the outbound, I think we have an advantage because a lot of us in the outbound business, especially when we represent destinations, are bound by those destinations' tourism bodies. And they, by and large, are very, very professional. very professional. So we are given a lot of direction. And coming to what Kapil was saying, I absolutely agree. We're in the consumer business. It doesn't matter what I like as a package or what you think is the way I must do a package. No, it is what is that consumer wanting today, and that has to be backed by research. I do know for a fact that a lot of our clients that we represent, we get a lot of consumer research on a regular basis, and we base a lot of our programming around that. And because of that, for every, and I get asked a lot of times, but how come, I've given you so much time? It's next month. Why can't you participate? Because we plan a year in advance, because I need to look at data, because we need to find out what is the ROI on that. And I really repeat that again and again to people. And I think the other thing with the outbound piece is that because when you look at the outbound structure today, there is a very big opportunity today. Now everyone's almost on the same side, in the sense that there is no one big and small. Everyone has an opportunity. The consumers, it's very clear there is demand to travel. There is pent-up demand. Great opportunity for new destinations to come in. And within those destinations to start marketing even the smaller destinations. For example, if LA was the piece that everybody wanted to go to, great opportunity to look at West Hollywood or Santa Monica, etc. People are looking for newer experiences. So really the roadmap for us really is to make sure that we continue to target that consumer, inspire that consumer, because that's all we can do right now, is inspire the consumer, making sure that they are dreaming about their next holiday, and we are part of that. So where do these consumers sit? That's what research tells us. What are they consuming in terms of media? What are they consuming in terms of content? And content really is king. And I think that's something that the tour operators in the outbound side have started to look at. Coming to the inbound, which you just said, Homa, of course it's an opportunity. If you're a tour operator, you can sell anything. If you can do an India package, why not an overseas? So I think one of the things that I think that one could learn is a structure there, which not only in India, but overseas, when you look at the outbound operators, there is a very, they really go a lot by data and by what's happening by consumer behavior. And that's, I think, a very big opportunity for even the inbound operators. You are operators. It doesn't matter whether you're inbound or outbound, as long as you understand the target audience that you're working with. Today, when you look at a domestic operator, and I know that Jyoti and me have had several discussions on that, if Kapil Kaul is your client, Kapil Kaul will travel domestic, and Kapil Kaul will also travel international. So why can't we just make that shift? We cannot just look at, the same old cut, copy, paste package. This is a circuit, and I've had several fights with several inbound operators. So, nahi, agar Jaipur ja rahe ho, Agra jana zaruri hai. Why? I only want to go to Jaipur. I want to go for 3 days, and these are the 3 things I want to do. Well, give it to them. And I think that's something that we have to all learn. From the outbound perspective, we've kept, like I said, inspiration. We've made sure that our messaging regarding welcoming all our people are there. The US is welcoming as it was. And of course, making sure that, we're showcasing all the diversity. And I think all tourism boards are doing that, where they're making sure that all diverse sides of their destinations are coming in front of their consumer. And on the other end, making sure that we are also, our industry has suffered a lot in this time. So we've actually worked with our partners to make sure, how do we partner with them? It might not be the same way we've done in the past. How do we help this industry out to make sure that we come up when the time is right with very meaningful partnerships which will benefit our industry, which is our tour operator partners, and obviously benefit our destinations.
If you allow me, I forgot, and Shima put that point together. I think the roadmap must include what is the relevance of our tourism brands. Because if it's about a consumer, then it has to be about a brand. What is the Taj Mahal brand stand for? What does the backwaters of Kerala stand for? What does the palaces stand for? How is it relevant to the customer base and the consumer base we are targeting? We've stopped building brands. We still have Taj Mahal, but the experience is opposite. Backwaters still gets a great experience, but I don't know how it's marketed now. So if you have to build a roadmap and it's consumer driven, it has to go back and reinventing these brands. Whatever they stand for, maybe a bit of modernity around the experience, infrastructure around that experience. You can't just be saying that I have Taj Mahal and that's what my tourism is. I have palaces in Jodhpur without reinventing that brand. For whether Taj Mahal for a millennial could mean something else, could mean different for a middle-aged, could mean for a different, for a elderly gentleman. So unless until you create hyper-relevance of the brand, keep reinventing it based on the underpinning of a very strong consumer understanding, which is very, very regimented and consistent. You may be able to make the tourism more relevant whilst you look at more new destinations as well.
And I think the biggest game changer, we all have to embrace technology. It's here to stay, it's not going away. So if we've not taken this time to see within our own structure, within our own organizations, how technology is going to play a very big role, then I think we might not get there.
Thanks. So when you are sitting over here, आपको ऐसा लगता है नेपाल में we are better off than them? ये तो वही बात कर रहे हैं, we are better. ऐसा लग रहा है आपको कि you also the same way?
It's not like that exactly, but I
Does
think-
your industry also in Nepal work like this only, different segments? How is it happening? Or you work collectively, you all work very closely, or it's even worse than this?
Mostly we work collectively because in tourism, especially during the crisis and after the crisis, collaboration and communication are very,
How
very-
helpful is your government?
Not so, but trying to convince. But I think while talking about in the region, including Nepal, especially after this pandemic, we need to look the things a little bit differently. For example, the outbound traveling from our region itself can be a very good inbound for many countries in South Asia, which has not been so strong in the past. For example, while talking about the inbound in 2019, nearly 15 million we received in India, nearly 1.5 million we received in Sri Lanka, 1.5 in Maldives, 1.2 in Nepal, roughly around 20 million we received as inbound. And while talking about outbound, nearly 25 million from India, 1.4 or 5 from Bangladesh, 1.5 from Sri Lanka, 1.3 from Nepal. It is roughly around 30 million. So, but so far, the perception that we have in our destinations is very, very rigid. For example, in many source markets, among many travelers in India, perception about Nepal is only Pashupatinath, casino, and some hill stations, and maybe some few honeymooners. While talking about the perception about Nepalese travelers, about Nepal is shopping, medical, and some pilgrimage sites. That's all. For example, in Bangladesh also, there is very rigid the image about our own destinations. But the market is really very, very big in that segment. Large plethora of travelers in our region are also exploring these kind of new things. For example, in 2019, I was in Dhaka, and I asked my young friend who runs a kind of a startup company. He started one very quick survey in his digital platform. He asked simply one question, which is the closest bungee jump from Dhaka? And then out of 57 respondents, only one said it is Nepal, and 56 they said Malaysia. Whereas in 1 hour of flight, Nepal has 3 bungee jumps, the second deepest bungee jump in the world. So I mean that kind of segment we have never explored. Maybe this can be a biggest blessing of COVID, that we can explore that kind of segments within our region. I have seen many of my friends, they are booking some packages, Enfield ride from Delhi to Ladakh. In Nepal also, right now, many young segments, we are looking them enjoying paragliding, bungee, rafting, that kind of segments. So I think this is the right time to explore that hidden segment so that we can add new chapter in our tourism, which is really very strong.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Najib, in South India, while you all are sitting, because India is so huge and you all think separately like the North Indians, very different from us.
We don't.
Are y'all having
we
some?
don't. We don't. we are one India.
No, One India, okay.
Probably only on election time we talk about South
Yeah,
India.
but at the moment you're talking only South India. So in South India, do you have some synergy over there? Are you all working together? Have you all made some roadmap that how should we get larger portion of the business? Is
Yeah,
there a roadmap
No,
in the
see-
future over there?
See, the roadmap, it's very clear. Very clear. Because as it is, the roadmap is domestic tourism. There is no doubt about it. But if once the international, flights are open and the inbound tourism business is going to open, the competition is going to be very, very, very huge. All the source markets, people are going to try their level best to get their best share out of them, right? So it's not going to be easy. And also look at 1,800 domestic tourism segment in India, out of which 50% or 24 billion or 25 million tourists which are going out, they will go away, or 50% of them will go away. But still, the domestic market will retain or sustain in India. So it's time for us to look at differently, and it's time for us to look at that domestic segment also who are not into that market, point number one. And international market, competition is going to be very good, excellent. We have to be really, come out with the digital marketing, market it differently, very aggressively, everything. But one important factor for India, especially South India, is that, just look at the COVID time. The people who have been stuck here, all of them have gone back with good experiences. That's a very good plus point for us, right? I'm saying from my experience from Kerala because, not one bad incident which has taken place. We have sent everybody safely to their destinations, even after a couple of months stay, after getting the flights and things like that. Point number. So second point is that, we have another experience. We had the worst flood which happened in over 100 years in Kerala. We thought Kerala is gone. And just 2 months after the flood, we did the Kerala Travel Mart in Kochi, right? Inviting about 1,200 operators from outside and India. And the biggest business we did in the last 10 years is 2021 till March, 2021 March, with 45,000 crores in the revenue and 10,000 crores foreign exchange, right? What does it mean? That means even after COVID, immediately after opening up, we have a huge chance of doing extremely well. I'm very positive about it. And South India will do very well because of 3-4 factors. Excellent connectivity across the states, excellent destinations, which has been packed during the last season, and very good resorts and infrastructure and human resources, and very good experience sharing by the entire industry together. The South India, probably I feel that we work very closely and in a very collaborative manner through different channels with the government partnership, with the private partnership, with the association partnerships and things like that. And that is the success of probably in South India. And we can strengthen the Indian tourism industry by doing that. In my opinion, the entire India can do well if we open up our minds and work together in a collaborative manner and sort out the problems between the tour operators, the hoteliers, and other suppliers in the tourism industry. Everybody has got enough business, but it's important thing is our mindset to work together, and we have to have a correct dialogue, as Rajiv Kohli was saying in the last session for your question. I think we should do work together. We should not depend on the government to do that.
I
We
think
should
it's
try
very-
and initiate ourselves to resolve the problems and move forward. We can all do very well.
Very positive, very, so passionately you are speaking.
I'm
That is
saying-
why,
I'm
that is
saying
why
from
you
my
have been,
experience.
that is why you have been elected to come to North India regularly and make sure that we also practice the same thing and bring all those good practices over here.
Thank
So
you
have
very
to
much. I
come-
will do my best.
You have to
I
come,
will play
come
my
more
role.
often. You have
I
to
will
come
do
more
my
often.
best. I
So
will do
Ajit, I've
Thank
asked
you.
everybody about roadmap and about the country, how we should go about. Specifically for your own company, have you a roadmap ready? You think you are ready with the roadmap when it opens? You're all set to go? In a small way, it's very important. As an individual, have you done it?
We have, I think specifically, we were in the inbound and domestic space. So right now, we are really working hard at getting our act together as far as the domestic adventure travel segment is concerned. But talking about it at a national level, I would like to point out that pre-pandemic in 2019, adventure travel was a $683 billion industry globally. And India, I think we need to tom-tom from the rooftop. We need to get the message across that we have every geographical terrain in our country. We are a biodiversity hotspot. And we have, for instance, 73% of the Himalayan range in our country. What is needed desperately is a national adventure tourism policy focusing on the 3 Gs of risk management. The first one is guidelines for adventure tourism to be adopted across the country. The second G is guides. I think we need to train our guides to international levels. We do have some who are right up there, but I think as a country we need to make a big effort, like for instance Nepal has done. And the third G is gear. We need to ensure that our operators have the best gear you can get anywhere. We do need to open new areas, like for instance Spiti, Pithoragarh, Arunachal, which is an amazing destination. I think India has it all. The Nanda Devi Sanctuary has been shut since 1983. So we need to open up these areas. We need to look at insurance and rescue as far as adventure travel is concerned, and also open airstrips in some areas, like for instance Pasighat and Mechuka in Arunachal. Sikkim has opened up now, but places like Kargil, Nubra, Gauchar and Chilyani Sor and Pithoragarh in Uttarakhand, Spiti in Himachal. We do need to open up these areas now with fixed wing flights, because that will spread the benefit of tourism to these remote areas of remote parts of our country. Yeah?
Wow, very good. So guys, you all heard the 3 Gs. Actually, we have been believing only in 1 G, and that is God. हम सब भगवान भरोसे करते हैं. So we have to forget only 1 G and follow the 3 Gs which he just now told us. And with that, I think I was, yes. And if there are any major points somebody else wants to add, all yours.
I just wanted to say that, we are talking about tourism and we keep telling our members and the fraternity at large to get into tourism. And I think that's something, yes, but we need to be very specific in saying, like I just heard, that don't cut, copy, paste. Please, there are so many avenues to explore. There are so many ways of exploring. We just heard from Ajit what all you could do. But we are very good at copying what is being done and we don't become very innovative. I think it's time to be innovative. It's time to invest in ourselves. And like, I heard someone say also this, that there is 25 million people who travel out every year. That outbound is here and they spend around $29 billion outside. Let's even in cash, half of it, and we would be doing much more ourselves personally and for the industry too. So that is, there are so many things to do in this domestic tourism till the time outbound doesn't start, that we should be availing this opportunity and actually exploring new destinations with new opportunities, with new ways of working. And of course, technology is here to stay, and we've learned that very well during COVID times. I mean, can you imagine what would have happened if there was no Zoom and no webinar and no Netflix at our time? I think we would all be dead, we won't be here. So technology, of course, and how to adapt it. I keep hearing this between our travel agent friends who are even sitting here, and OTA. I think today we all have the caliber to be an OTA. So I think that is where we should be taking our business to the next step. As TIE, we are building a technology platform for our members to utilize that, but we should do that. And we should also invest in skilling and upskilling our staff, because I think that's very, very important, because if you want to stay alive in the new norms, I think that is something we really need to look into, and how we could help those who are working with us for us, and how do we help ourselves to take the next step and the next move forward?
Thank you.
Homa, I
Kapil.
just want to add one point and, on the roadmap. You know, I have just seen for the last so many years that I attended a conference or any kind of a conference. There is this tendency to applaud for no reason people who represent the government. I think the leadership of the associations are ring-fencing an open and honest conversation. Wherever I attend, whenever there is anybody who attempts to speak on facts, certainly I think there is gang up to stop a transparent, open communication going across to the leader. I don't know, there seems to be I don't know, I don't know what's the other word to it. You have to crack this because the roadmap has to break and create a partnership where the government is accountable and the industry is accountable to the government and the government is accountable to the industry. Ultimately, if you need job creation. Wherever I have gone, I think there seems to be a very different mindset that we shouldn't speak facts. We shouldn't speak the truth to people who make policy. Let's keep singing praises. I mean, this is laughable, frankly, post-COVID. Any roadmap that must begin with an honest conversation. Then why do I need to do this? Till the leadership of these associations in the industry don't take a little more nuanced stance with the government, and the government starts making the industry accountable, you can't ask for a change. I mean, I attended a conference, I wouldn't name it. The moment we speak, in the corridors or outside, people in the leadership of those associations would say, oh, everything is fine. You're speaking right, but don't speak publicly. I can't believe that. So any roadmap that you're building must begin with that change, where how do you make sure that industry is accountable within the industry, and the industry is and the government is accountable, and there's a very open, transparent, healthy dialogue. If you don't create that partnership, you can't have any revival, frankly.
I'm going to add on to that. No, I somehow, Kapil, don't agree with you totally. I think what we saw a couple of years back doesn't exist today. I have seen that I have had arguments with all ministers and all secretaries in this 1 year of lockdown. And I think I've been very vocal about it, as talking about TIE now. I'm not talking about other associations. But I see there is a huge shift on the positive side, that they are willing to hear us now. That's something which was not existing 2 years back. 2 years back, it was yes, sir, no, sir, Hanji, sir, please, sir. And now it is like we tell them. And we've also gone to the extent of saying that, hey, you are here because of us. We are not here because of you. So I think those dialogues have changed. The things are changing. Yes, we still need a lot from the government. But again, I liked Captain Swadesh when he said that, why do we need the government? We need to be first answerable to ourselves and our industry. The members have to be answerable to themselves. Why are they out to kill each other? Why are they giving credits in the market? Why are they over trading in the market? Why are they giving commissions and killing each other? Why aren't we putting our own house straight before we are going to the government to say, help us? They are working on a divided force. Why aren't we united together so that we are not divided and the government sees us as one? So there are a lot of things from both sides, and we need to take that collectively in a positive attitude and move forward. Because believe you me today, that the Ministry of Tourism and Aviation, the ones which I deal with on a regular basis, are willing to call a spade a spade. And we've gone to the extent of saying, you are not protecting us, we are not going to come to your office. And so I think those times have changed, but yes, we need to still work towards a lot, but we do not need the government for everything. We need government to bring in the best regulators and a good regulation policy. But to work, it is our industry that collectively and collaboratively needs to move forward to take things forward.
Thank you, very well said.
And this is another learning from outbound. I think when you talk to anybody who's an outbound and their marketing destinations, we're accountable. I mean, I can't tell you when we finish a project, and I think that's a very big learning. You never see the government taking care of tourism. They give it to the experts in market. And they come in market with a pure RFP. They come in market where you're making a proposal, a presentation, and they're deciding. Now, that's the thing. I think that's a very big learning that I think that everybody here, and I know that I've had lots of chats on this, but you know, that's a big learning that you never see a government overseas really handling tourism most of the time.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I think, you know, I don't know whether we all have read about the new tourism policy. You know, it completely clearly mentions the exhaustive changes in tourism. From the centralized ministry initiatives, it's going to be changed under the leadership of the National Tourism Advisory Board. And the competition is going to be destination management, destination competitions. And even the states have limited roles. States will be supportive, central government will be supportive, but the National Tourism Advisory Board will coordinate with the different ministries and implement policies and move forward, which is going to be very good. Like something like Niti Aayog, you know, a smaller version of that. Unless that kind of a drastic policy change is coming and implemented, because I've gone through the entire thing, you know, tourism in India is not going to be changed at all. We will be sitting here and discussing the same matters even after 10 years and 15 years, which we have been discussing for the last 15 years. Some of the points which we have raised in the morning sessions, we have, we have been discussing the same thing. Like tour operators, hoteliers, that issue, this, you know, this completely demolished. You know, I feel that our possibilities are tremendous. What are we talking about, 10 million tourists? We are talking about Dubai tourism or Malaysian tourism, which has come out 20 years later than our tourism, or just 15 years old. He is doing three times the business. Here, Indian tourism policy is saying that 33 million tourists, right, in the next 2-3 years. So that's the kind of vision statement they have made. But are they going to implement it? Today, if you ask for an appointment with the tourism secretary, we'll have to wait for 2 weeks. Where in Kerala, I can walk into the tourism minister's office and tourism secretary's office next after 5 minutes and meet them and talk to them and say, or take the phone and talk to them. Are we in a position to do that in India? Central government? No, no one. IATA president or FHRI president or anyone, or you, anyone, no. So how can you expect tourism to grow? A completely drastic demolition has to happen in the Indian tourism policy and an implementation program so that the tourism can do very well. Because we have that kind of connectivity, infrastructure, resorts, hotels, manpower, and the products. If you keep India one side, the rest of the world another side, India will have much more products than the rest of the world.
Wow, with those words,
Thank you.
I hope Naveen Berry is noting down all the points. Huh? So, yeah, we need export status, we need industry status, we need everything. And I hope Naveen Berry has made all these points. Vibrant session. Friends, I hope some few, takeaways you all have had. And to each one of you, thank you very much. Secretary Saab, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you.